Hey everyone, this is Raga and welcome back to my channel and welcome to a new video. So as the title of this video suggests, I'm going to be talking about my Step 2 CS exam experience itself. And as I mentioned before, I'm pretty excited about talking about this exam simply because this exam was such a good experience for me and it just went so well for me, and it was such a wonderful process altogether that I just love talking about it and telling you guys how my experience was and what all I went through. Now, just for starters, I did my CS on the 8th of March of 2016, that is this year. Although that was not the date that I was intending to take, I wanted a date around the mid of March, so around the 11th to the 15th of March. And let me just tell you guys, once you have applied for your Step 2 CS exam, try to apply for your date as soon as possible. Don't wait, guys. Because my mistake was that I waited too long to schedule a date, and that kind of made me struggle a bit. But in the end, I got lucky, and I will tell you how. So I wanted to take my exam by mid-March, and I had also organized to take my rotation, my US clinical experience in the US during that period itself. So I was in the US, in Chicago to be more specific, from the middle of February to the middle of March. That was my 1 month rotation, and therefore I wanted to take my CS exam towards the end of this period so that I have enough time to study there and be able to take the exam at the end of that rotation. So I waited until I saw a date that was available at the mid of March. And what I didn't realize is that they usually don't provide any dates for the CS around that period, which is the mid of March or the middle 2 weeks of March. I had no idea, and the reason that they do that is because that is the time of the match week where residents and fellows are getting matched, and therefore they don't schedule or they don't give any dates for that period. And I realized this only once I reached Chicago, and I was so desperate to get a date that the only date I found was the 1st of March. And even though that was so early for me, I still clicked on that. I selected that date, and it was a PM session, which means it would be an afternoon session, which means you would be there from 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. or something like that. And that was crazy. That's just crazy timings. I don't like PM sessions because I'm most productive during the morning time, and that's what I wanted. I wanted an AM session, not a PM session. Every day I would check the website with the scheduling dates every single day, at least 3 times a day, just so that I could find a date at least a little away or a little further than the 1st of March, because I wanted at least 1 month to study for the exam. And if I did my exam on the 1st of March, it would just be too early for me, and I don't think that would have been enough time for me. Every day I would check the website with the scheduling dates every single day, at least 3 times a day, just so that I could find a date at least a little away or a little further than the 1st of March, because I wanted at least 1 month to study for the exam. And if I did my exam on the 1st of March, it would just be too early for me, and I don't think that would have been enough time for me. So one morning, I remember I just woke up. It was a working day. I woke up, I think, at 5 a.m. and that was the usual time I woke up so that I reached the hospital on time. And I just took my phone, which was next to me on the table. I took it and I just refreshed the scheduling dates for the CS. And for my luck, I saw a date available on the 8th of March and an AM session. My heart started racing so quickly. I clicked on it as soon as possible because, to be honest, when these dates appear, it's sometimes just seconds that it's available, because someone might see it and they will just select it and the date is gone before you know it. So I started panicking because I think if you change your date, I think about 10 days, is it 10 or 14 days before your actual date for your exam, they don't ask you for a fee. I was at the limit. The next day, if I had changed my date the next day, I would have had to pay that rescheduling fee, which I was so lucky. I clicked on it. I didn't have to pay anything extra because I was still within that limit period, and I got the 8th of March as an AM session as my exam date, and I was so excited. So initially my plan was to study for at least 1 month for the exam, which was from the mid of Feb to the mid of March, where I was expecting to take my exam. But obviously that didn't work out, and for that reason I had much less than a month. I think I had about 2 weeks to study, because even when I reached Chicago, I was still settling into my accommodation, and it was so cold, guys. It was so cold. It was snowing, and I am not used to that kind of weather. So in the nighttime, even though I was in my room and with 2 sweaters sometimes, I would still feel so cold, and I cannot concentrate on studies when I'm feeling that cold or uncomfortable. Until I got a heater and got comfortable, there was a little bit of a delay before I could actually focus on my studies and get the hardcore studying in, and that was just 2 weeks before my exam. And I found these group of international graduates and international medical students at this place in Chicago, and I started studying with them, and we obviously would take roles. We would pair up with someone, and one of us would take the doctor role and one of us would take the patient role, and we would time ourselves and try to practice for the exam. And I remember some of them who had their exam I think a few days earlier than mine. They were so shocked with how unprepared I was, and I was so embarrassed, to be honest, guys. I felt so embarrassed, and that made me feel like I want to study alone and by myself. But guys, I want to tell you something. Don't feel embarrassed. No matter how little you know and how unprepared you are, don't feel embarrassed, because this is how you learn. Don't care about what other people think, and just focus on what you need to get done, and don't worry about being embarrassed, because if you don't try to practice with someone, then you will never get over that embarrassment, and you will never get over that shyness that you have. So just, I think, keep your embarrassment aside and focus on yourself and your need to do well in the exam, and practice with people, and don't just practice by yourself. Except towards the end, when you're 1 or 2 days before your exam, what I did was I didn't want to waste time traveling to another place to practice with someone. So I stayed at home and I sat in my room and I acted like I had an invisible patient in front of me, and I started practicing. But that was just 1 or 2 days before my exam. But most of the time, for that whole 2 weeks, I was going every single day to that center with other students and other graduates, and I was practicing every single day, multiple cases in a day. So obviously, as I mentioned before, that I studied from the Step 2 CS first aid book, and I think, covered all the cases, and we did the difficult ones again. Some cases, like a case about memory loss and dizziness, these cases take a much longer time to finish, because there are so many questions that you have to ask them, and the examination includes the nervous system examination and the mini mental status exam, and all of that takes so much time that most of the time candidates find it difficult to do all of it within the given time. So these were the topics that we had to practice more often, so that we could make sure that we didn't have the same problem in the exam itself. So anyway, coming to my exam, on the morning of the exam, I made sure that I kept everything ready. So my scheduling permit for the exam was ready and printed, and I made sure I had my stethoscope, my white coat, and you don't need to take anything else, not even a pen, because they will provide you with everything. They will give you a pen, they will give you a clipboard with paper, and they will not let you take anything else. And be careful about what stethoscope you take, because they don't want those digital stethoscopes that you guys must have seen around. They will not allow you to take that. So just take a regular stethoscope with you. They will even check it before you enter the exam, so be careful. So the morning of the exam, I woke up early so that I could call an Uber, and I was not sure if there would be an Uber available that early, so I woke up early, but thankfully I found an Uber, and the Uber came and got me. And I made a mistake because the morning, even though my white coat was ready, as I was running out the door once the driver was there, I forgot my white coat. And I think we drove off, and 1 or 2 minutes later I realized that I didn't take my white coat, and I asked the driver if he could please turn around and let me get my white coat. And he was so nice. The driver was so sweet. He turned around immediately, and I ran in, trying not to slip on the ice on the road, and I got my white coat and I got back in. And I also packed a little tiffin box with a little food because I was not sure if they would provide us with any food between the cases and during our break time, but I wanted to just make sure that I was prepared, so I took that as well with me. And once we reached the center, there were 24 candidates, and these are two separate groups. I remember I was number 23, and I had a girl who was on the number 22, and I had a boy from Canada. He was from a Canadian medical school on 24. And these 24 people will be divided into two groups. So the first 12 people will be group A, for example, and the next 12 will be in group B. So we divided into two separate groups, and these two separate groups will go into two separate areas where they'll have 12 cases each. So the cases will be completely different that these two groups get, and there's no way of us knowing what each other got until after the exam. We all had these little tags with our numbers on the side. It kind of made us look like military doctors, you know, with the little badges on the side. And we had our white coats, and if you have anything written on your white coat, like your name or your institution or medical school that's written on it, they'll give you a piece of tape that you have to tape over it. You're not supposed to have anything that can identify you by name or by institution. So I had my name on my white coat, so they gave me a little piece of tape to cover it, and that's what I did. And obviously your hair should be tied back, you should look professional, and yeah, the only thing you should take in with you is a stethoscope. They'll give you a room where you can keep your bags, your other things that you have with you. The only thing you can probably take into the waiting room where you'll be spending your time during break time is any, you know, snacks or food that you want to take in there, or water or juices you can take in there. And you're only allowed to sit at your number. You're not allowed to exchange seats with anyone. You're not allowed to even talk in between the breaks. They say avoid talking to each other, do not discuss cases with each other. So all of us were kind of scared. We didn't want to break any rules, so we all were just talking in general. We were not talking about cases that we saw. In that waiting area or the break room, they have all the equipment on the side, which they also have in the rooms or at the stations where you have your cases. So you can go there and kind of practice everything. So if you want to look at the otoscope, or you want to look at the ophthalmoscope, or the tuning fork, or everything is available there. So if you just want to make yourself acquainted with those, you can go and practice with them a bit, so that when you go to your station, you know exactly what it looks like and how it functions. So once the time was right up, I think it was about 9 a.m. They made us line up as per our group. So the first 12 lined up in the order that they announced. We don't arrange ourselves according to number as we thought we would be. They would just randomly call us by names, and we should stand in that order, and then they will take 12 into one room or one area and the other 12 into other area. So we got in, and we would have to stand in front of our case station. When they tell you to stand in front of your door, there's like an automated voice that talks and tells you what to do. So they'll be like, okay, stand in front of your station. So you go stand in front of your station, and you'll see a little rectangular piece on top of the door with a little door-like shutter. And when they say you can begin your case, that's when you open the shutter, and then they have a briefing about the case. So they will be like, a 24-year-old male who has come with headache, these are his vitals. Most of the time they'll give you the vitals of the patient, so his blood pressure, pulse rate, his temperature. Now don't worry guys, I know this all might be sounding very confusing, but before you enter the exam, when you're waiting in your break room, they will show you a presentation where they will be explaining exactly what's going to happen in the day and how you're supposed to go through with the cases. They will give you A4 sheets of paper with a clipboard, and they will provide you with, I think, 2 or 3 pens. So you will, even if one is not working, you can use the other. So you have only one sheet per patient. So use your space wisely. Don't try to overwrite and go to the next page. Don't do that, because there's only one paper per case, and they will take this paper back once you're finished with each case. So if you finish with your first case, once you're done with the case and finish with typing, they will take that paper from you before you proceed to the next case. So make sure that you use the paper wisely and don't overwrite and go to the next page, because the next page is for the next case. So what I did primarily is when they announced that you can start your case, and when I opened the shutter, I will quickly divide my paper into 4 sections. And what I would generally do is, it's just easier when you write your acronym on these sections that I've showed here. It's just easier when you write your acronym. So when you look at your paper and you're in front of your patient, you can talk to the patient and just look at the acronym and see what you have to ask the patient next. So for example, if you're gonna, and I showed you these flashcards before, so if you're writing Pam hit FOSS, you can just look at each alphabet and then ask the patient. So it's just easier for you rather than you having to sit and think, oh, what am I supposed to ask next? So you can just write in one of these sections, you can just write Pam hit FOSS, for example, and then that just makes it easier for you to quickly take the history. So usually the first box is for firstly the general information about the patient and more details about the presenting complaint. I would write down the age and the name of the patient in the first box, just because when I go into the room, because of the nervousness, it would look bad if I forgot the name or the age of the patient. So it would be better if I write it down so I don't have to worry about it again. And then I would continue, depending on what the case is, I'll start asking questions. I will obviously introduce yourself, smile, be very hospitable, because that's very important. I would say it's very important to not just know your information with regards to your medical knowledge, but also be very kind to the patient and be very understanding and empathetic towards your patient. These are all simulated patients, obviously. They're not real patients, but they will be grading you. They will be they have a checklist of their own, and once you leave, they will be checking, many things, and I'm sure many of them include how you were with the patient and how your rapport was and how you made them feel. So make sure that you're very kind and empathetic towards the patient, and consider what the patient is saying and be a good listener. Obviously, don't try to cut the patient off, but also at the same time try to not make the patient keep talking about unnecessary details, which is probably taking your time, because you have only 15 minutes in each station to take a full history, to be able to examine the patient and counsel the patient. Guys, counseling is so important, so make sure that you don't miss the counseling and be able to counsel the patient at least a little bit. Coming back to my exam, I think we had finished about 3 cases, and then they gave us a little break, which I think was about 10 minutes. So we all exit. We had to leave our clipboard, our pens, and I think our stethoscope, or I'm not sure if you can take your stethoscope. Anyway, we left the place and we went to the break room. And I think by that point they had some coffee and some tea and water there if you wanted to hydrate or drink something. Obviously, I didn't drink any coffee because, as I mentioned before, I'm very cautious with how much coffee I drink before an exam, because I don't want to have to keep going for a bathroom or lavatory break. And obviously, again, we don't talk to each other about the cases that we have, but I remember talking to the people next to me about how I feel after the first 3 cases, and whether I find it difficult or whether I was expecting it to be easier, for example, but we never discussed the cases. So after that little break, we went back and we did another 3 cases. Once we were done with those 3 cases, we had a lunch break. They gave us a table with a spread. It was not like a huge buffet, but it was food which would be easy for you to eat in that short break period. So it'll be finger food, sandwiches, what else? The easy stuff, things that you can easily eat. I did eat because obviously I feel like I want to raise my blood sugar levels before I go back in, and I cannot really concentrate when I'm feeling so hungry, so I wanted to eat a bit. I didn't eat too much, but I ate a little bit and I hydrated. Then I was prepared again for the next 3 cases, and then you have a break again, and then the last 3 cases, and then you're done. So with regards to the cases I got, Obviously, I cannot discuss what the cases were that I got or anything specific to the cases, but I will tell you that I was very, very happy with the cases that I got. And to be honest, I felt that most of the cases, if not all, were based off or were very similar to the cases that were in the Step 2 CS first aid. However, the other group that went to a separate area, they had really difficult cases when compared to us. So we didn't get any cases on memory, for example, or dizziness, but they got cases of that sort, really long cases that were really difficult to finish in the required time. And I was really shocked of how different these two groups were. Our group got cases that were very doable and much easier, I felt, but the other group got more challenging cases, and I was really shocked of how different the cases were for the candidates of the same day. So I guess it also has to do with what luck you have for what kind of cases you get. But don't stress it, because the first aid covers almost all kinds of cases, and that is exactly what you need. And once I was done with my exam, I was so excited. They gave us a paper of completion, and I was so relieved and so happy with how my exam went. And once we were done with the exam, all of us were so excited and so happy with how the exam went that we all decided to go to a local cafe and just celebrate and enjoy that we finished our CS, which is a big step obviously, and we had a great time that evening. Once I finished the process, I look back, and to be honest, the Step 2 CS is my favorite step or part of a step that I've taken so far, and it was such a wonderful experience, both studying and preparing for it, as well as the exam process itself. So for those of you who are about to take the Step 2 CS, all I have to say is keep at least 1 month for your preparation, and make sure you book your or schedule your test date as early as possible so you don't face the same situation that I did, and prepare with other people. Practice, practice, practice with as many people as you can so that you are timed well and other people can critique you with your technique and what you missed and what you did well. And just have fun with the process, because it's a very nice and fun process, and you will really love the experience, both for preparation and for the exam itself. And don't stress it, and just be yourself, have good patient communication and good patient empathy, and you'll be fine. I hope I didn't miss out on any information that I had to tell you for the Step 2 CS, but if you feel like you want to know more about the exam day itself, please let me know in the comments bar below, and I will answer as many questions as possible. Don't forget to continue leaving your suggestions for future videos down in the comments bar, and I will definitely work on creating videos on your suggestion. And until I see you guys in my next video, bye!